Well, howdy everyone. As you'll all know by now, Canon have just released two very interesting and slightly divisive super telephoto lenses, a 600mm and an 800mm f11 for their new mirrorless EOS R cameras. Which one should you get if you want to get either of them, and you haven't been put off by that dark maximum aperture? That's what I want to look at in this video, because it's a decision I recently had to make myself, because I wanted to keep one of these but definitely couldn't afford to keep both. Well, talking about affordability, the first question you might ask is price. The 600mm lens is $700 or £750 in the UK, which might seem to some like a lot of money, and in absolute terms it is, but it's actually pretty good value for what you're getting, in my opinion. The 800mm lens is considerably more, costing $900 in the US or about £980 in the UK. Still, for a good quality 800mm lens with autofocus and image stabilization, that's basically unheard of. These two lenses both have lots of very close similarities. They both have the same build quality, except for the obvious difference in size and weight. They both feel nice enough, but a little lightweight and plasticky. They both have excellent image stabilization systems and quite dependable autofocus, although you are somewhat limited to the central region of your camera's focus area. They both have that dark maximum aperture of f11, meaning that you'll need to use quite high ISO levels in your camera when shooting, but then again, with a brighter aperture than this, the lenses would have had to be a lot bigger and a lot more expensive. In my tests, their image quality was essentially indistinguishable. Pretty sharp, both of them, although with a somewhat low contrast attributable to the effect of diffraction at f11, and also probably the diffractive optics design hasn't helped either. They both work well against bright lights, have good enough quality bokeh, low distortion and vignetting. Everything is pretty much present and correct here, their image quality is pretty good. So which one do I think you should choose? That's ultimately up to you, of course, and different people have different requirements, but I do have a strong opinion about that, which I think you might find helpful. If you are very seriously into bird photography, as in you spend every weekend you can in a hide in your local wildlife park with your anorak and flask and specialised tripod, then the 800mm lens is your obvious choice. Or if you want to try your hand seriously at astrophotography. But honestly, for 90% of shooters, I think that the 600mm is by far and away the better choice, and here's why. You see, while the 800mm lens is impressively small for, well, an 800mm lens, and light as well, it's still pretty big in absolute terms, even when it's collapsed. If you go travelling with it, you'll need a specialised camera bag to stow it away, and it's still just a bit too bulky for if you're going out for a walk with a dog or whatever, and you just want to have a camera with you without it being too intrusive or attention grabbing. That was the reason why I never ended up using my Sigma 150-600mm lens. Despite having it for 2 years, and despite being really impressed by its capabilities, there was just no way I was ever going to take it with me anywhere for casual shooting. The smaller 600mm Canon RF lens neatly solves that issue in a pretty revolutionary way. Here is a lens that will happily collapse down and fit inside almost any medium-sized camera bag. Here is a lens that's just about lightweight enough for you if you're carrying your camera around your neck as you're walking. And don't forget, 600mm is still a very powerful telephoto reach, giving you a very narrow field of view. It's still really nice for catching shots of birds. It's also worth bearing in mind that the minimum focus distance of the 600mm lens is 4.5 meters, as opposed to the 800mm lens's very distant 6 meters. What if a bird suddenly pops out at you only 5 meters away? With the 600mm lens, you can get that snapshot right off the bat, whereas with the 800mm lens, you'll be trying to focus, you'll be cursing at it as you realise you have to take a few more steps back and recompose everything. By the time you're ready, you've lost your shot. Infuriating. Honestly, the 600mm lens is a lot more flexible, I think, a lot more portable, and its wider angle means you're a little less likely to get a blurry image in your final shot from motion shaking. It's a bit easier to use. It costs a lot less money as well, and the smaller 82mm filters it can use will cost you a little less too. At the end of the day, the whole design philosophy of these lenses is that they're small and light. Well, the 600mm lens has a huge advantage over the 800 in that regard, making it far more enjoyable to use and far more likely you'll actually get out and about with it fixed to your camera. The 800mm lens is very impressive, but most people will look at its still considerable size and feel, well, that they just don't want to use it as much, and it is admittedly a bit more difficult to shoot with. I've sold my 800mm lens on already, awesome though I thought it was, because the thought of having that much smaller 600mm lens by my side as I go out on casual photography trips or holidays is really delightful. So there you go, that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the description below. Ciao!